We're going to go to Jim Rogers right now. Joe White is standing by. It's a little bit crazy in D.C. this morning. Jim, thank you for joining us. Jim, you've never been very keen on the dollar. Where do you think right now the current status of U.S. debt talks and the negotiations or lack thereof of the last couple of weeks have left the status of the world's reserve currency?
Well, Kelly, all this stuff in Washington, I know you have to report on something, but it's basically a scam, a charade, if you ask me. They're just trying to get publicity. They're not going to default. If the U.S. defaults, it'll be for a day or two. They're going to put together some kind of false package. They're going to say everything is all right, but then everything is going to get worse. What is the status of the U.S. dollar? I actually own the U.S. dollar at the moment because everybody is so pessimistic on it, including me. Usually when that kind of thing happens, something comes along and causes a rally.
Wait, Jim, you hate the dollar, but you're owning it. This sounds to me like a perfect example of everything that's happened here. Everyone hates the status of what's happening in the U.S., but at the same time goes, well, you know, maybe what's the worst that can happen here? Do I really want to hang on to these assets anyhow?
Well, Kelly, I've been investing a long time, and I've found that normally when everybody's on one side of the boat, you should go to the other side, at least for the moment. Yes, longer term. I said everybody's pessimistic on the dollar, including me. I'm one of the most pessimistic. But I do know that everybody's been beating the dollar down, so I bought it. If they announce a package or if they change some laws to encourage dollars to come home, who knows? Something could happen to cause a rally in the dollar. Longer term, will I own the dollar? Absolutely not.
Now, Jim, let's get specific here for viewers. When we're talking about what could happen over the next week or two, we've been throwing around the word default. But as you say, the chance that the U.S. or the likelihood that the U.S. actually misses any payments or has to somehow radically alter the status of its outstanding debt is small. What's most likely to happen here is that the government effectively shuts down spending cuts, discretionary spending cuts, that kind of thing. So that would be an outcome, obviously, with negative consequences for growth and negative consequences for the dollar. So why are you so comfortable holding it here?
Because, as I said, everybody's pessimistic. Everybody's sold the dollar on the scenario which you've just said. And that could very well change. No, I don't expect them to have real spending cuts. Kelly, they've been doing this for 40 years, talking about how they're going to solve the problems of the deficit. You remember the Grace Commission? You remember the Graham-Rudman Act? The Graham-Rudman Act said we cannot have deficit spending anymore. Well, that was 25 years ago. They've forgotten about it.
Neil, is this all much ado about nothing? Because you do have that feeling in markets this morning where people were so worried about how Asia would trade. Yes, we have futures pointed down today, but is there a sense that the broader sort of concern people had is somewhat overdone?
You know, I don't think it's so much overdone, Kelly, but I think it's you know, I think it's partly the degree, the echoing the politicians that, you know, something will get done at the last minute, a sort of a deep-bred skepticism about the political process, perhaps, but that in the end, something will get done. And as you say, various Wall Street firms themselves have come out with different scenarios, talk about tax receipts, talk about cash flow being paid out, so that I think we're not at the point yet where, you know, if we personify the market, that, you know, Mr. Market thinks there's going to be a default. And as we've discussed previously, there could be a two-step process where it might be the lead of the major ratings agencies, either another statement about how concerned they are, inching closer to a downgrade, that then precipitates more of a market reaction, which therefore, you know, completes the circle with the politicians being able to cite the markets.
Hey, Jim, do you care if the U.S. loses its AAA status?
Kelly, the U.S. has lost its AAA status. Anybody who knows what's going on knows that the U.S. is now the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. It's only Moody's and S&P that hasn't figured out what's going on. The world, the investment world, the financial world knows that America is not AAA anymore. Who cares what Moody's said? Moody's has gotten everything wrong in the past 10 years. Why do you pay attention to them?
Sure, but Jim, it does matter for certain investors, pension funds and otherwise, who are only allowed to hold AAA paper. So I guess what I'm asking is, are you concerned about the potential impact on markets just purely from that point of view if the U.S. loses its AAA rating from one of those agencies, what the knock-on effects would be?
I'm not paying any attention. It may have an effect for a day or two. I'm sure that you all will be reporting it nonstop, but it is totally insignificant. The market looks ahead, Kelly. Yeah. This is not the first time the market has dealt with the fact that the U.S. is bankrupt.
But Jim, if what you say is true, and of course, obviously, we've seen that all sorts of times in market history where things trade at prices that aren't reflective of its official ratings. Yet we heard before this morning that the 10-year note of the Treasury is trading at 2.99. Is that so? That means if the market perceives the U.S. as a AA credit, it's still worth a 2.99 return on a 10-year note?
Neil, I'm short United States government bonds, long-term bonds. I wouldn't lend money to the United States in U.S. dollars for 30 years at 3 or 4 or 5 or you name the interest rate.
Right.
Jim, that trade can't have worked out very well for you over the last couple of months.
You're crazy. Maybe you should go to Dow Jones and look what's going on. I'm making money. I shorted at June 10th. Kelly, I shorted at June 10th. Pull up your Dow Jones and see what's happened.
Okay, June 10th. So it's more of a short-term trade than a long-term one.
But still,
who knows? I'm short the bond market. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be shorted for a day, a week, or 10 years, but I'm shorted as we speak.
Could something happen, Jim, in Washington that would make you change your basic view of the creditworthiness of the United States?
Oh, sure. If they took if they took a chainsaw to United States government spending, yeah, of course I would have to change a real chainsaw to government spending. Of course I would. Mm-hmm. Or if they discovered natural gas in the huge oil field in Chicago, many things could make me change. But at the moment, I don't see anything that's real that's going to change. As I said, look up Graham Rudman. Look up the Grace Commission. We've been doing this for 40 years.